Welcome to the Roswell Business Podcast. On this episode, we interview Joel Wood, a little bit about his life, his businesses, and words to live by. Enjoy. All right. Well, Joel, thank you for taking time this afternoon to sit with me and our audience and the people that enjoy hearing about all the amazing, wonderful men and women of our city that are affecting its current and future happenings. And it's just a privilege to have you sitting with me today.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. Super excited just to be on the podcast today and just to get to share a little bit about what we do. Enjoy it.
Awesome. Let's talk about Joel, the man, first of all, where you come from, where life is at, what might have happened over the years, places you've lived, people that have been at, part of your life, that kind of, as always, on each one of our episodes, we like to get to know the person first.
Definitely. So I was born in Abilene, Texas, in 1985. And so I always love that, I'm glad you let me tell this portion of the story, because if not, you would have got it anyway. Because I've been in New Mexico about 3/4 of my life. We moved to Farmington in 1996. In the summer of 96, I was going into the 6th grade, and I had some family that was up there. But I will always take about 15 minutes to explain to you how I'm from Texas, and I'm a native Texan. And so I love... I just love that. A lot of roots there. But grew up there in a single parent household. Lived with my dad, which was a little peculiar for just that time. Typically would have been with your mom. And so, so live with my dad and have an older brother. And it was just the three of us. And
Wow.
My dad owned a construction company. And so our first job I ever worked on was about 8 years old. And so we just spent, a ton of time with him. And that's kind of how we grew up, was on the job sites and watching him run business and playing sports.
So did he have you doing a lot of the work too?
The very first job I ever did for him, I was 8. And my brother and I painted ourselves into a corner. We actually painted a basement floor, which I was still surprised looking back that he allowed us to do that. But I can still remember the sound of his voice when he walked down the stairs into the basement. And we were so proud of ourselves, and did a decent job for our age. And we had painted ourselves. We were on the opposite side of the room, painting ourselves literally into the corner. And I could stare at my dad, boys. And as soon as he said it, we realized what we had done. And so he just kind of laughed and, tiptoed across and picked us up, took us to the stairs. And it was also the first job I ever got paid for. And of course, I got paid for it only to find out he used that money to buy his clothes for school that year. But it was a neat learning opportunity, actually, from an early age, even with business, to realize that, you can make money, but you got to work for it. And then beyond that money then is often spoken for and things. And so it was kind of a neat early lesson.
So your dad was entrepreneur, had his own company.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. As long as I can remember, he had his own construction company, and he started by himself, probably in his early 20s or mid 20s, I guess. And had it all the way up until his passing this last November. And so, it was just, something that he was a crazy entrepreneurial spirit, was just super consistent. Crazy thing, he never advertised outside of a few magnets on his truck, but he was never in between work. And So he taught us a lot about the quality of work and the type of work ethic you should have. And so a lot of how I view things today and how I lead and the various organizations I'm in are a huge part of what he taught us as kids. And so super thankful for that.
So you were in Texas for how long?
About 11 years.
Okay.
I was born in Abilene, raised until about my 11th birthday. We moved to Farmington, New Mexico, went to middle school and high school there, and eventually in 2003, moved to Las Cruces, followed my brother. I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
Okay.
So was looking into small business management at the time, and was pushing into a degree program for about 2 years. And about 2 years into that, I had... just an encounter with the Lord. Obviously, I'm in ministry today, and I was sitting in a microeconomics class and had just made a simple statement of, well, what am I doing here? Yeah. And it was just really the first time he said, I didn't call you here. And so I made just a shift in life. And so leadership and other opportunities have continued, but just continued in a different avenue than I expected.
So you said you followed your brother to Cruces. Was he at school too? Is that was the whole point of going there?
Yeah, so typical little brother, you follow your older brother wherever they go.
Okay.
And so he had gone to New Mexico State and was in a degree program of which he graduated for initially for music education, and then after he had got married, had to go back later and finish it for kind of a general education. But he had done the bulk of his time there, starting I believe in about 2000 or 2001. And so he had been there for a few years, and I just little brother followed him
Inspired
down.
you, and okay, and so you were doing business, and everything shifts and changed. I know you had said that you had worked for a pretty cool company at somewhere along in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, cool thing you talk about business. I forgot about this part. When I actually started with my best friend, our own lawn mowing company when we were in middle school.
Okay.
We didn't have vehicles yet.
Yeah.
And so
No vehicles, but a
picked
lawn
up.
mowing
Yes,
company.
we did. I put a weed eater on the handlebars of my bike, a rake if I needed to, and my friend would walk and drag his lawnmower through the neighborhood, and we had about 5 or 6 clients. Because we didn't want to. Our family, just typical middle class family, of course, for us, single household, and so I saw how hard my dad worked, and I didn't want to always ask him for money, I had girlfriends, or I'd want to go to the movies or something, and so I figured instead of asking him for it because he worked hard, that I would just go work myself, and so. Every week we had like 5 or 6 clients. One of my favorites was this elderly gentleman named Mr. Chavez. And he'd call us, come on my lawn, and we wouldn't even be finished. We'd just barely be working. He'd be walking around with his cane, scratching the grass. You missed his spot. And I'm like, we're not done yet. And in his yard, I mean, maybe $10. So my friend and I, we'd split the money. And through our high school years as well, we actually continued that and developed more clients and would pick up jobs here and there. And that's actually a skill set of just going out and just learning how to work. My dad always told me, he said, Joel, stop trying to figure out how to make $1 stretch and go figure out how to earn 2.
Nice.
And it was just that's kind of a general principle, of life. And so
That's good.
Just had a lot of fun with that. And of course, stepped into college there and had a transition as far as schooling. Begin to just study towards ministry and some of those things. But in the meantime, I had an amazing opportunity to work at NASA. There's a test facility called the White Sands Test Facility there, and was able just to work and be a part of some things. Eventually oversaw, was picked over some other guys to be able to oversee all the mail center operations for the entire facility of about 2,400 people. And so it was
no short task.
No, sir. It was a really unique opportunity.
So you're at school, you have this shift, you're looking at doing church work, which is not a easy task by any means, those of us that have been involved in that. Somewhere along this line, you find somebody that changed your life.
Absolutely. Actually through that same season, of course, had a friend that brought a few friends over to the house. They were riding motorcycles and stuff, and had brought this girl over one time. And funny thing is, if she was here, she would defend herself in this story, but she's not, so I can share it. But I always say the very first time we met, she kind of gave me the cold shoulder and ignored me. And she'll be like, "No, if I would have known you were talking to me." I'm like, "No, you saw me. You turned around and looked at me and ignored me." So I had my feelings hurt a little bit. But she ended up coming over to our house. We were just hanging out with some friends, and they happened to come over. And my friend was like, "Man, that girl's all me." And I was thinking, I had my feelings hurt. I'm like, "Forget her, sure, my feelings." And then, of course, a couple hours later, they were hanging out in a different part of the house. And he comes out and says, "Oh, she says she just wanted to be friends." And I jumped up and changed my shirt. And I still have the shirt to this day. I've kept it for that purpose.
Wow.
No button up. And she's like, "I thought there were 2 of you, like you had a twin." And so I went and changed and got nicer. And then, in the next few weeks, we ended up kind of hanging out and building a relationship. Eventually got married and have 3 beautiful daughters. And we're starting to enter the teenage years, and so that's fun. Definitely a new adventure, but it's been good. She's wonderful, and we've been married. This year will be 16 years.
Wow!
And it's just crazy to think how much time we've had together. It's been wonderful.
So 3 kids, y'all done?
Yes, 3 and out.
Okay.
We're looking forward to the shift at some point to grandparenting. We're not quite there yet, which I'm okay with, but certainly looking forward to being able to spoil them and give them back.
So you guys obviously have a lot to tell there, especially with 3 daughters. I'm sure there's some serious adventure at the house.
Always.
But how did the transition from professional business into church world? How did that happen, and how did that do as far as a paradigm shift? Because that's a pretty dramatic shift in someone's life.
Yeah. I would certainly say it's a shift in maybe the general outcome of something, but when you really consider people that are in business every day are in a people business, right? You're looking to connect with customers with whatever product or engagement or whatever it is that you're in that market for. And the only difference really at this point is I'm just in the market of the kingdom, and so the measure of our wealth, if you will, is how God measures it, and that's souls. And so the whole thing in general, I would say it was tougher going into, you're going to have the people dynamics working with anybody. If you're in a leadership position, it's challenging. And usually the greatest thing is you always hear that statement like, man, this would be great if I didn't have to oversee people, those things. And so in that perspective, it really wasn't too difficult of a shift. Because as I was looking into taking those classes in the microeconomics and things, there wasn't that same spark that when I had made that shift and I knew that I was called to ministry, that really made something come alive in me. And I think that within that, the purpose that we all have, whether it's in the business field or in ministry or whatever it is, that we all really do have an essence of a call. It's just expressed in a lot of different ways.
Nice. So did you go immediately into a church environment for work, or were you primarily schooling for a while, or what
so
was the process?
I basically in our local church, I had served as a volunteer in a volunteer capacity, but nearly full time while working for about 7.5 years, while in the midst of that doing Bible-based training for the ministry. And I think like any profession, you find out once you get that there's a lot of things they forgot to teach you. And so I was super thankful to be involved in hands-on experience, just gaining that on-the-job training or that engagement, before you actually go into it full time. And so I had a pretty cool opportunity about a year before I went into full-time ministry, received credentials through the Assemblies of God in March of 2009. Okay. I actually didn't go, and this process started probably in 2005, 2006, of schooling and some things and doing what was required for that. But then I actually went to work full-time in August of 2011 at Las Cruces First Assembly as their youth and young adults pastor.
Wow.
And so pretty neat thing through that, but it was just the training and the various things. I had some opportunities during that time, which were pretty cool, was to actually get to lead a worship department of about 150 between the choir and the media and sound and the band and all of that. And so it was certainly a crash course in leadership. And honestly, after that experience, I almost didn't go into ministry. I was thinking, man, if this is how people are, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with this. And of course, then I realized that it doesn't matter what industry you go into, people are people, and you have to learn how to navigate it well.
Yeah, that's good.
So, yeah.
So that all happens. You're there. You said, my goodness, a good number of years that you were out there. And then suddenly there was an opportunity presented with our city.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I served in Las Cruces total for about 13.5 years between volunteer and being on staff. I was just shy of like 5 years by a few months. And about the last year I was there, I remember going to my senior leader and I said, man, I feel like I have these competing visions in my heart. One was what I was currently doing, and we loved it. I mean, we loved our teams. Things were finally working. I don't know if you've ever been in one of those positions, and everything is finally doing what you want it to do. And then you realize there's a shift coming, and it was kind of like, no, and I remember they would ask me, hey, have you ever thought about being a senior pastor? And I was like, no, I don't want to at that juncture, just because I had seen my pastor and I'm like, I don't want his job. But early 2016, January, one of our leaders in our network had called me and said, hey, I'm going to be going to a church that's gone through some things, and it just had a little bit of a rough go the last few years, and said, hey, would you be interested? I'm going to be talking with him. I think you'd be a great fit. And I just remember going to my senior leader, and I just told him, I said, hey, if it's God, we just want to be able to go and be obedient. If not, we'll come back and just be faithful and committed and serve.
Sure.
And that opportunity came up, and we came out here to Roswell in February of 2016. to just meet the people in the church. And May 1st of 2016, so we're here in just a few days, coming up on 6 years. Wow. As lead at Waymaker Church. And so we were able to transition, and May 1st of 2016, we stepped into taking over, my wife and I, Waymaker Church here in Roswell. And honestly, we've fallen in love with the city. We love the people here. Love the general culture, and it's home for us. I told our board, I said, listen, guys, I'm like, unless you guys don't want us to, I said, we'll probably be lifers here. And so for us, we've had a real gift to be able to come in and just enjoy the people, enjoy the community, and to see the potential of Roswell. My goodness, there's so many phenomenal people here. And so many amazing skill sets. And so it's neat to see, even in the short amount of time we've lived here, just even the progress of the community and the possibilities of what can happen here. So
thank you. Thank you for committing to our city and our people. That's part of what we do with this. The whole point of this podcast is people like yourself that are making somewhat of a difference in whatever field they're in, and helping, celebrate and honor this, what has always, even by tourism, said just a very quaint, kind, gentle community that people always enjoy visiting. And so, anyway, what a task, though. To be a senior pastor is no small feat. And we can transition as we talk here. Let's talk about, what you do in this city. And I know there's a lot. It's not just the church, but let's start with the church, because that's where we segue from.
For sure.
And then let's explore some of these other things. Just, are one of the neat things about these episodes is actually talking about what's actually happening in our community.
Absolutely.
So go for it.
Yeah. So as I said, May 1st, 2016, we just took a church that had been through a rough transition. And so obviously our initial tasks were really gaining perspective and building relationships and those types of things. And so our first assignment just started in-house, repairing the house, and both physically, emotionally, spiritually, the building itself. Those were some of those things that you don't expect. And all of a sudden you sit in a lead chair and you find out real quick when it rains, it was raining inside. And so it was intro to leadership of, you're taking on the ownership mindset of the organization, really. Yeah. And so with that, we started with that core and, doing some little things and gaining understanding and perspective. And as we did that, it just led us into a season of really beginning to define, what was our mission, what were we supposed to accomplish. The more that we looked around and just observed, for any of us, there's a lot of things that we can do. But there's not a lot of things sometimes. Just because it looks good doesn't mean that we're supposed to do it. And so we took the time to just come in and to get to know our people, to really just figure out, God, what do you need us to do? And we just wanted to run after that.
Wow.
And so that process took longer than I expected. I mean, it was a few years. But in that time, last month, we actually just completed, we launched a few things. And one of the hearts for my wife and I is we love outreach. Mm-hmm. We believe that it's important to be in community, not just a place that people go to a church on a Sunday and, it's a nice little fancy club, but we feel that we're called to engage and really to engage with no strings attached. That obviously at the end of the day, as a pastor, would my desire be that people serve Jesus, of course. And that's why we exist. But in the meantime, there are real people in our community that are dealing with real life, and we have an opportunity to make an impact. And so what
are some of those practical ways that you do that?
I think in some of the simplest forms, one, just being consistent. The last few years, we've had an amazing opportunity to partner with the city of Roswell and do like the fall festival event, where we're helping to put on just a safe environment, type environment for kids to come, and the inflatables and candy and games and, just a lighthearted environment. We were able to serve through things like food distribution and those types of pieces. But it's consistent engagement, partnership with local schools, helping to provide basic needs for things that they need. Here recently, we had just got a semi truck. It's like 30 pallets of hand sanitizer, little Purell 8-ounce bottles, 12 to a case. And we spent 3 days giving out about 54,000
Wow.
bottles,
Yeah.
at no cost to anyone. And we were able to get those things to multiple different educational facilities and businesses and hospitals and clinics. And so for us, it's just the consistency of being there, whether it's picking up trash. We just want to be available. One of the things also is obviously there's an issue of homelessness and that kind of a need here.
Yeah.
And so from early on, about 4 or 5 months in, just went to a meeting, at the Wells Fargo Tower in the conference room upstairs. Beautiful view of our city. It's my favorite. Just sat there and heard the need and was thinking, we can just send a few volunteers. And out of that, became part of the founding board. And now I'm the leader of that organization overall. So
And the organization is?
It's the Roswell Homeless Coalition.
Yeah.
And so about the last almost 5 years now, actually at least the last 5 years, we've, if you've been in the community for that long, you've kind of known the story of how we went initially to the city council, and it's morphed through so many different things. But out of the dream and the desire to make a difference to help people that are hurting and broken, we were actually able to, we now own the former Rivers of Life property. So we have a men's home and a women's home. The Eastern New Mexico Auxiliary unit, they had a thrift store that was kind of in disrepair, and they just had a building, they weren't going to use it, and they ended up donating it to us, and it was a huge blessing. And we put a new roof on it, raised the money for that, and then now it's open. And so it's just been this beautiful, properties and all this different thing, and it's just open doors that we've been able to make an impact.
And you guys have a store as well, right?
Yeah, so at the Homeless Coalition thrift store is 221 East Wildy, and so we have an amazing team there. Our leader's name is Joy, and she's a joy to be around. And so everything that we do there, the furniture, everything that we sell, of course, based off of donations, goes cover our operating costs, and it goes right back into keeping our homes open.
Nice.
And for several years, if anybody that's launched anything, how difficult that is, to get something off the ground. And we started with nothing. We started basically with an idea and a heart to make a difference. And it's amazing to see how in the last 5 years, I think just in the last, just since January, I know that we've had 30 individuals come into our centers off the streets, and about 20 of those were successful in getting them off the streets.
Wow.
Working back into a home.
Wow.
Or reconnection with family, connection into a program somewhere. And so it's just been an amazing experience.
That's huge. You keep saying we.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's far greater than just Waymaker.
Yeah.
What is that?
There's just always, I believe that any good leader is surrounded by great leaders, that we always want to position people. And so when I say we with the Homeless Coalition, we have a board of directors. Yeah. We have our, which are made up of different pastors and leaders, business leaders from around the city.
Nice.
And so we come together. It's not just our church; it's all of us.
Yeah.
And so we have about 6 that sit on our board. We have facility staff, our directors, Erica Boggs, who took over January 1. Actually, we had a transition at the end of the year from our previous director. Her and her husband started a church, and they did some amazing things for about 2 years. And they've stepped into that role and continue to do what they're called to do. Yeah. And our current director was actually raised up out of our programs when COVID hit. Single mom of 4. Yeah. And she had come down to go to nursing school here, and then the classes got shut down, and she suddenly found herself homeless.
Wow.
Stayed in a motel, trying to figure out how to provide. Spent all of her money there, and didn't have anything. And we had some family rooms open, and they were able to come in and stay with us for probably over a year while she was getting her feet back on the ground. She learned, kind of became the right-hand man to our director.
Okay.
And then from there, she really has taken the reins and continued to help drive the mission forward. And so really without all of them, I feel like my primary responsibility is to keep us on track, make sure that we're making great decisions, and, provide counsel and insight, help with projects and things. But man, in the day-to-day, without them,
so this really is a greater community effort.
Absolutely. Well, and what I love about Roswell is, you go through Main Street, and we get approached by the business owners there because a lot of times there's transient or homeless that are panhandling, and and there's issues for that. But what I love is that every single one of the people we've talked to want to help and make a difference.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about Roswell. It's not like that everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times just to say, just arrest them, get them out of here, get them out of my face. And what I love here is that really deeply people do have a heart of compassion, and they're trying to live well and do business well, but they really care for other people. And that's, for my wife and I, that's one of our favorite things about living here. So
let's go back to the church. It's unique in the fact that there's not a ton of people that are always involved in leadership at a church. So for our people that have only been on staff at businesses and things like that, let's talk about what a typical week might look like as a senior pastor of a local church.
Definitely. Well, we always affectionately refer to Sundays as every Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday, where that's the kind of the prime setup for us. But within an office week, we have right now I've got five. There's 5 full-time pastors with us. We have 2 admins, one in the business office, one that handles kind of onboarding and the written type communications, input of data.
Yeah.
And then we have a couple of facilities guys. And so for us, on any typical week, our staff are required to submit staff reports based off of what we experienced on Sunday. We have a constant culture of evaluation. And so based off of those, we're looking at needs. What did they see? What did they hear? And those things begin to help us to enable and to shift. So within our primary mission to encounter, live for, and advance the kingdom, we look at what's been taking place. I'm looking over staff reports. I'm setting the agenda for the week for our staff meetings that happen on Tuesday mornings. And so for me, Mondays are a lot of times administrative days, meetings, meeting with different people, whether it's on staff or in the community. And Tuesdays we bump into staff meeting, other projects. For me, I have sermon prep, so messages don't come from nowhere. And so what's crazy is
I'm sure you do those in about 5-10 minutes.
I
Right?
wish. It's crazy that the shortest amount of time it's ever taken me was probably an hour. In a given week, and sometimes it's taken me 20 to 30 hours to prepare one message, just depending on what it's about and the heart behind it. And so a lot of study in that and things. We have, of course, multiple ministries that are taking place, or small groups, or different things, and so community engagement. And so those are happening all throughout the week. We have a school of ministry, and so we're always running at meeting the needs of those and meeting the needs of people.
And school of ministry, meaning you're actually training people.
Yes. So one of the things that we feel was super important, and so we launched it actually right as the pandemic was starting. We launched it in March of 2020.
Yeah.
And
you stuck with it.
We did. We were going to do it, and we were going to continue to do it, even if it wasn't what we wanted in that season, and it wasn't ideal. We knew we were supposed to do it, so we were going to stick with it. And so that's been amazing. We had our first 5. So by the end of that particular program, it ends up at about an associate's degree over about 18 months, just in all of that. And they can go through a couple different universities to get that. And then there's some other education opportunities beyond. But so we train in-house.
You keep that going year-round right now.
Yep.
Wow.
And so finally we were able to, as we relaunched this year, so we finished the first it's 5 trimesters, so again, about 18 months worth. And myself, my executive pastor, oversaw it for all the first 5 trimesters. And then one of our students that came through, she ended up actually coming in, and she's actually helping to facilitate those classes. It's a video-based curriculum. But then on top of that, we try to plug them in, so we're also getting practical application to what they're learning.
Very cool.
And so, a lot of crazy things always going on.
And all of that's just over the first half of the week so far that you've said?
Yep. Yeah. So, the thing is, of course, like many know, there's social media engagement. There's prepping for things. If there's any issues you have to come with right now, we're also in a major facility project. And so anything that happens in the building, I felt like I've been doing projects for about the last 6 years now, which I have. The current one is probably the largest. We're building out a 12,000 square foot kids wing to be able to, better engage and further engage in the next generation, which is something that's also near and dear to our hearts, is impacting the next generation. And that's where, even with our schools and just community engagement, that's where we're always running after is how can we see an impact? And there's a great need for that here.
Yeah.
Even in light of recent events and some of the things that have happened in our community with our young people, that there's just great need there.
I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about this episode's sponsor, the local Roswell Chamber of Commerce. Their mission is to promote economic and social prosperity, assist in business development and tourism, and foster community spirit and pride. They do that in a lot of ways. They're readily available at 131 West 2nd Street to take your call, to take your visit, to stop in and connect your business to what's going on around there. They have regular meet and greets where there's leaders locally and across the state and things that are relevant to not only business, but to our local community and how we can thrive and do well. Scheduling business after hours around town, various different businesses. You might be one of those that could use a chamber-sponsored event to come in and promote that and bring in a lot more attention to your business through their network. They have ribbon cuttings. Maybe you've got a new business that you have coming in, or a newly updated part of your business that you want to celebrate. They are happy to come and be a part of that, utilizing their red coats and leaders that are part of a special team that will come and celebrate those moments with you. There's a weekly update via email. If you are not already receiving that, you would like to, I think you would like to sign up and start receiving that. That's where you would receive, usually on Fridays of every week, the happenings that are going on around town and businesses that are advertising inside of that and part of the Chamber of Commerce network. There's also a Roswell Now magazine that they produce and they put out several quarters of the year, and that has a lot of articles celebrating our wonderful city. Again, thank you to the Roswell Chamber of Commerce. If you are a member, we appreciate you locally. If you are not, you seriously should look into that and see all that they have to offer and the ways that we can continue to honor this community. All right, let's get back to this episode. Yeah, you're doing a lot in this community.
Yeah, really.
A whole lot. And how does all of that fit? How do you volley all of that? Because, for all of us, whether it's a manager, a supervisor, a general manager, owner, whatever, one of the hardest challenges always faced with anybody that owns and operates something is family and husband and wife time and all that.
Right.
How do you, as even more so as a pastor, because I know all of us that have grown up in church and gone around that a lot of times feel like when our need is very important that the pastor should be available. So talk about how you volley family life and the responsibilities that sit in there too.
Certainly. First, with family life, I live and die by the calendar. One of the things that I've learned is that people respect my calendar. If I say I've got time with my family or I've got to go hang out with my kids, there's always a pressing need, and hey, it won't take very long, and inevitably it will. And one of the things I've learned to do is I schedule time with my family.
Nice.
It's on my calendar, and because it's important to me.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, hopefully that was all that was. Go ahead.
But exactly that we schedule it, because for us we schedule around our priorities, and my family is a priority. Now, obviously, like everyone else, we have the seasons that are busier than others, and so sometimes things can get a little out of whack. But ultimately, that side of it is I just set boundaries and say this is what we do and what we don't do. And the same kind of goes for the office and what we do as far as those other things. First, and I've been taught that we're to staff, for our weaknesses. And so I'm consistently in a process of evaluating, trying to learn that to only do what I can do. And those other things that there are other things that if someone can do something 80% as well as you can, not to say that we're the benchmark, but if you have a specific way of doing something or you want done, if someone can do that 70, 80% of what you can, then you need to hand it off. So that your time is maximized based off of like, what can you do? What do you bring to the table that no one else can? Okay. And so in my role in both organizations that I lead, both the Waymaker and the Roswell Homeless Coalition, my primary responsibility is the overall vision and direction of the organization. And so I staff for areas of weakness for me. I don't have to be the top guy. That doesn't bring me any, it really doesn't bring me any kind of joy for titles. I don't work for that. And so what it does is it sets us up to be able to have the right people in the right seats. But before we do that, the main thing that we took the time for is our mission. And so we are missional organizations. And what's neat is if you can define your mission in business or in any type of organization as a leader, if you can define your mission, you'll know what to say yes to and what to say no to.
That's good.
Right. Because if you're saying this is what we've set out to accomplish, because there's a lot of great things out there, right? We all love shiny things. I love shiny things. But we have such a tendency in business or in leadership to divert to things that really don't matter.
Wow.
And I have a mentor that tells me, if everything's important, nothing's important.
Yeah.
And so it's like we often have learned to say no to good things. And this is the downside is it seems difficult. We say no to good things so we can say yes to the best things.
That's good.
And so those types of those types of moments is just that constant check. So our mission, our organizational values, what we want to be known for, what we feel like we're called to do, we try to filter what we're doing through those. And if they don't line up, then we don't do them. And we don't always succeed at that. I think all of us have a tendency to let our guard down. But really what keeps us on task is having the right leaders in the right seats, scheduling what we value the most, because we all make time for what's important to us.
That's good.
And we all have the same number of hours in a week. And so if I say my family's important, then I'm going to schedule. And they also understand. We also keep a mindset at our home with our girls, and we have since they were little, that we get to do what we do.
Nice.
It's not something we have to do. And especially from a kingdom aspect, I just always remind them, I'm like, I worked for the guy that made everything. And I'm like, and he could have chose anyone, but he chose us.
Yeah.
And so I said, it's actually it's a gift for us to be able to do these things, not that we have to. And so we of course still try to be mindful where that, statement doesn't become just an excuse for ignoring, family time.
Sure.
But it certainly is one of those things that it's just how we frame our minds to look at what we do.
So even as a pastor, you find it sometimes a struggle to be married to your work instead of.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think anyone who's driven,
Yeah.
like if you're goal oriented and you just have that, not even just a type A personality, but anybody that has that desire to succeed in business, every one of us are going to struggle to maintain. And I almost felt like the word balance is elusive anymore. You always hear that, oh, do this, you got to be balanced here. I don't know that it's so much balance as much as it is principled. You have to know what you desire. And you're going to have seasons where this thing is going to suffer a little bit because we only have so many hours. And so, but communicating well to where, yes, I'm going to have to push hard in this season, but then I also come back and we not necessarily make up for it, but we don't allow that season to become a lifetime.
That's good.
It's a season, and we push through it. But at the same time, my wife and I are huge on just trying to capture moments. It's not always the big vacation. It's not the big things or the costly things. Like we try to look for little moments to capitalize on.
Nice.
And it may just be stopping for an ice cream cone. It may be walking the track at Roswell High. It may just be sitting out back on the patio, but nobody's on phones. No one's distracted. And we're just hanging out and going for a hike or those types because we love the outdoors. Often it's those types of things. But yeah, absolutely, it's a constant struggle to be able to maintain those, because when you're the leader of anything, it's like having a child,
right?
There's always those demands, and it's your responsibility to figure it out because the world ain't waiting for you.
That's a good illustration because children are unpredictable and. It seems like business always is as well. Even just when, like you said before, you just got it all together, and now you got to go invent something new.
Yep,
and
always.
Wow. So let's talk about. We kind of bounced through some other places, and that's what I always love about these is because usually hearing people's story kind of sends us places. Let's talk a little bit. We'll go back to the beginning just slightly, but let's talk a little bit about Joel, the man. What does he like to do when he gets just him time?
Of course, when you're in leadership, it's sometimes tough to find those moments. But I would say first and foremost, one, I love the outdoors.
Okay.
Like if I can find a way to, I always joke with people and I make it sound like, Christian whatever, just for fun, because I was talking the scripture that Jesus would go to the mountains, and I'm like, guys, I'm just trying to be like Jesus, and look for a way to go.
Right.
Again, so anything like just outdoors, I love being there. Just shooting and all things outdoors. Recently had been able to purchase a 4-wheeler, and so
Nice.
I've been just out trekking in the middle of nowhere, 30 miles from the nearest person. Like, it's just been a great thing. I also love to read, and just to grow in those things. New stuff always challenged me. I love physical fitness. So I was, after COVID and them shutting gyms down, I built a home gym, and so it's just kind of a fun retreat to do that. And honestly, outside of that, because we're always on the go, I also like to be home.
Wow.
I love spending, some of my favorite times is just going on breakfast dates. My wife will drop our kids off at school, usually on a Friday, and one of our favorite local spots is Cowboy Cafe. We love it, and we'll go sit in there, and had a fun time when I was in there once where I was eating pancakes, and they had cooked something with green chili. And they cooked my pancakes in the same spot that they had made. And I remember I was like eating the pancakes, and I was like, whew, I'm like, I don't think pancakes are supposed to be hot. and the wait staff had come out, and to this day, I mean, this was probably 2-3 years ago, and to this day, I mean, they'll still make comment about, do you want some green chili pancakes today? And and so for me, just even in life, like, I'm not always looking for the mountaintop experiences. It's just learning how to have joy in the simple things of every day. Time with my spouse, capturing moments with my girls, listen to their heart and what they're learning and what they're experiencing. I've had more joy in that than just doing all the things that I want to do. And so I enjoy that part. Enjoy being a husband and a father, and it's just it's fun. I enjoy being a pastor, getting the opportunity. It's a unique opportunity to have that level of access into people's lives, and we get to see a picture often that many don't, because we live behind kind of the veil and the walls. To present our culture is all about presenting that facade to people, and often I get a glimpse to look behind the facade and to see where people really are, and that's something to me that's precious. It's a gift.
Wow.
And so we love that opportunity.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So each interview, and I'm glancing over at my cheat time clock there. Each interview, each episode, we always like to conclude with just some life wisdom, business wisdom. Always every episode, there's always some that's laced throughout the whole episode, because whenever I've found when we interview leaders, they always are in that zone anyway. So there, you may reiterate something that we've already talked on, and maybe there's a different angle you want to talk, or something that was just fresh, or when I presented these questions before recording, maybe there was something that triggered your mind.
Right.
We'll just venture into that for a bit and see where it goes.
Certainly. I would say when it comes to like an organizational standpoint, I think the primary thing is to know your why. If we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, we're not really going to ever truly engage. I don't think we're ever going to actually fulfill our potential. And so often we can see an idea and maybe do it half-hearted, but if we're not passionate for it, if we don't know why we're doing what we're doing, it's never going to have the opportunity to make impact. And I don't know about others. I mean, for my own life, we don't get very long, on the earth. This last year, crazy thing, this last fall, the day before Thanksgiving, my dad passed away. The day of Thanksgiving, my grandpa passed away. And 3 days after that, my grandma passed away. And for my brother and I, it's 3 most critical people in our life and closest relationships. And so, having that reality check of the fact of the brevity of life, you realize that, we only get so many trips around the sun. And so maximizing our potential, I've heard that the gifts that you have is God's gifts to you. I was listening to, I don't know if listeners know Carly Fiorina. She was the, I think, first female CEO of Hewlett Packard.
Okay.
And she had a podcast she spoke with Craig Groeschel on his leadership podcast. And it was phenomenal. And she had said on there that, her parents had taught her that the gifts that you have and the talents that you have are God's gift to you, but what you do with them is your gift to Him.
Wow, that's good.
And it was just such a unique statement. And so being able to, maximize those gifts. And one of the things she talked about that honestly has really become a pillar for me is, when you think about leadership, that a lot of times I think you're expected to be looked at as a leader as if you have it all together and you know all the answers. And the reality of leadership is that you just get better at managing bigger fears. You learn how to solve bigger problems. And there's it's just that part, I think, to be authentic and to step into something, not with all the answers, but with the mindset of I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And you just do whatever it takes to run after it. And in that, another thing I would say more than anything, and for myself, is I'm a principled person.
Okay.
I'm not running after a quick buck. I'm not, just trying to do the next thing. My desire, I believe that like true success has a successor. Because it's not about us. And so if we want to be successful in anything, there ought to be a succession that passes on beyond us.
Yeah.
That should have a lasting impact. And at the end of the day, it doesn't have to be, for me, like I'm not working each week so that my name can be in lights. It's if we're successful at what we do, then the thing is what we do will continue well after we're gone.
That's good.
And so for me, on a personal level, that's what I work for. With the Homeless Coalition, I laugh. Sometimes we have individuals that stay in our homes, and they're like, "Oh, you make too much money," and I'm like, "Really? I'm like, how much do I make? Working for the Homeless Coalition?" And the reality of it is our board doesn't make anything.
Yeah.
We just spend time and we give personally, and our churches and organizations give. And so it's because it's just a thing we want to make an impact. But if we do well, that'll continue beyond our tenure in leadership.
Wow,
and the organization should be successful because we had founded it on right principles, and we've taught right mindsets and right ways to approach what we're doing. So for me, it's the same thing there. It's the same thing at the church that, all of these things should outlast us. And so my greatest desire in that and in leadership is just to build something lasting, and not for my own legacy.
Yeah.
But people matter too much in our community and all those types of things for us to do a mediocre job with the time that we have.
So. Love that. Really good stuff, by the way. Wow. Yeah. Almost like maybe you take this seriously.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and the fun part is in the midst of it, we certainly take our assignment seriously, but I don't take myself too seriously.
I noticed that you talked just briefly about the importance of just joy in your life, and anybody that's spent any amount of time with you knows that you actually even seek out making life fun in a conversation and with people. Has that been something that's been natural to you, or is that something you've learned, or how does that play into who you are?
I think there are elements of it that's just part of who I am, I like to have fun and to joke around. And, my brother, my older brother actually just came on staff for us at our church. And so, for him and I, we used to, make jokes and, your mom jokes, and not that it's like fantastic to do, but we would make them to each other. And so we would always,
for those of you listening, that's probably a home delivery. My daughter's getting married here soon. And so probably pieces like that, but continue.
We love home deliveries. It's like Christmas.
Yeah, I have the privilege to be able to office out of my home. So
absolutely.
And that's why we film like this. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to figure out what I was talking about.
We were talking about joy, and your brother had just come on to staff.
That's right. Yeah. Probably good that I forgot that I was talking about your mom jokes. But like our demeanors, I mean, we would tell those to each other. Somebody would say something like, "Whatever, man, your mom," which right. If our mom was around, she probably would have took us out. But but we just, the thing is there is strength in joy.
Yeah.
And so it's just good to have fun. It's good to not just be serious all the time, that we should enjoy what we do. And I know that, I just realized from now, the longer I'm in leadership and the longer I'm in a lead chair in ministry specifically, and with the Homeless Coalition in that type of organizational setting, I'm just learning that there's always going to be a need. There's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be a crisis. And so the thing is I'm simply have made a choice It's not that those things don't exist, and it's not that I don't feel the tension of those things, because it's always there. Again, it's like having a child. You're responsible. And so the tension is there. I just choose to not allow that tension to determine what I will and won't do.
Yeah.
There are some things that, of course, have to be taken care of. But if we allow the urgency of every day to be the driving force, then life is going to be miserable, and when, as I experienced loss this last year, there's so many people that have gone through it. It's just a season where my brother and I finally went through it. You realize that, those little moments, the times that you do get, like, those are the treasured things, and sure, having a successful business and providing for your family, or, we want to be successful, but I've just learned that success doesn't feel like what I thought it would.
Wow.
And so, you can spend your whole life chasing after the next accolade or the next level or the next dollar amount or whatever it is, the next amount of product. And you get there and you find that it's void of joy. And I've learned that joy is a mindset. It's not a destination.
That's good. Wow. Very good. Wonderful answer too, by the way. I always enjoyed chatting with you when the time affords. So when you had accepted the invite to come be on the show, is there anything that we didn't tackle that you were like, ooh, I'd love to share this with this audience?
No, I think we've covered.
I think we hit it?
Yeah, I think we hit pretty good on.
So then let's do this. If people are interested in connecting with you, how do they go about that?
Actually, probably the most simple way is actually just through email. And my email is pastor@waymakerchurch.org.
Okay.
So all lowercase, no special characters. And so that really is probably the most primary way. They can check out our website, waymakerchurch.org,
Okay.
RoswellHomelessCoalition.com, and they can see some of the things that we're doing. Of course, same thing for social media on Facebook. We have, Facebook.com/Waymakerchurch, and same thing for Roswell Homeless Coalition. And you can kind of get a glimpse there. That's where a lot more, especially with the Homeless Coalition, it's a lot more of our updates are there.
Yeah.
Of successful transitions and those celebratory things that we're just, throwing out there of wins that are happening. And that's probably one thing I'll add for people in business. Take the time to celebrate the wins. So not just for you, celebrate the wins with your team. If people have a similar temperament to what I have, we are too quick to move from a win and to enjoy it for a moment and to move on to the next task or item.
Wow.
And it wears our people out. I would encourage at least that. I'm glad that thought came, is that take care of your people and they'll take care of you. They'll enjoy working for you. They won't hate coming to work. They'll look forward to coming to work. And so learn to celebrate their accomplishments. Now, in a cultural standpoint, I don't celebrate mediocrity, but I look for opportunities where I see people going above and beyond.
Yeah.
And I look to be able to reward and to champion that behavior, because what gets rewarded gets repeated. And so it helps to reinforce the culture we want. And so that's a big thing from, at least for us, is we look to champion our people. It's not about me. It's just about us going and achieving. And so any opportunity we can get just to tell them why they matter. And it could just be a verbal. A few weeks ago, or actually about this last week, we had a staff member that had some death in the family and was out for the week, and understandably so. And we were able to help serve her family. But when she came back to the office, I certainly made sure to let her know, because I became painfully aware again of how valuable she is to our organization.
Yeah.
And what may look insignificant, in a moment at a glance, really mattered. And so when she came back, I just bragged on her. I said, I totally get it, not to make you feel guilty for last week, but I am so glad you're back. Like, you are wonderful. Like, thank you for being a part of our organization. And, little things like that can go a long way in helping your teams too. But anyway, I just thought about that one.
Good. I'm glad you did that. That's powerful, powerful statements. Well, again, Joel, thank you for taking time out of your week to spend a little bit with us. And it's a privilege to hear your story.
Thank you. It was a privilege to be on today. Thanks for the opportunity.
If you enjoyed today's program, subscribe to the format you are on, YouTube or podcast channel, so you get notifications of new releases. If you want to connect with me, go to DonovanFulkerson.com for my companies and related business and product offerings. On social media, my personal accounts have daily spiritual and personal life posts. My business accounts relate to those specific products and offerings. If you'd like to be a sponsor, reach out too. We can make that happen. Thank you for connecting. Please share this video and get the word out. We'll see you next time.